You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Friday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's going on in the crazy world of volatility? Let's find out together, shall we? It is time, once again, for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, the place where all you folks are having a good old time these days. Lots of great stuff over there on the website. You know, we have great articles, great unusual activity. You guys love the most actives. A couple of times a day, those are hitting. We also put those out on all the socials. You folks can't get enough of those. You probably could do a hour by hour most actives, and you folks would eat it. I'm coming up with bad ideas now. My team's going to hate me for saying that, but you do folks love that stuff. Of course, links to all the shows over there and everything else at theoptionsinsider.com. Today is the last day of May, so you want to get your name in the hat now for the May Pro Trading Crate. Each one is bespoke. Each one is pretty awesome. Sometimes I look at what we're having sent out the door. I'm like, oh, we're just giving that away? That's pretty cool. So we have some cool stuff in the vault. Hard to believe. We've been doing this for a few years now. We still haven't really even scratched the surface of what's lurking in the vault there. So get your hands on some cool bespoke stuff. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. It also gives you the key to unlock the door to options oddities after this very program. So your broadcast week doesn't have to end. Pro Q&As. You folks are already getting a lot of the OIC stuff there. More to come, including a panel with one of our guests here today. Just went out on the full network over there. You can check that out on the on-demand side as well. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more about all things pro as we learn who's joining us on the old Volatility Views program today. First, let's go out to the dark, the stormy, some might say hellacious, some might say not fit for human habitation shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to Volatility Views, sir. It's been a while.
It has. After prematurely claiming victory last week on Thursday.
You were chiming in like a day ahead of time.
I was so certain that I was going to score. And then, alas,
no joy.
You came into the last minute to scoop my thunder.
You know, sometimes that's what you get for trying to scum me, and then it all backfired on you. And then the best part was you accused me of scumming you, which was the best part after all. So hoisted on your own petard, sir, I say to you out there. Let's see what happens this week. We shall find out as we also go out to, I believe, the hinterlands of Chicago. Who knows? Maybe he's in Indiana. Maybe he's in Singapore. Let's find out. He is Mr. Russell Rhoads, the once future and present Dr. VSTOXX these days, crunching a lot of international vol data when he's not talking to us. Mr. Dr. VSTOXX, welcome back to the show, sir.
As always, very happy to be here. All I've been doing is trying to stop my 3 dogs from eating cicadas.
Yes, a huge problem downtown as well. The fact that I have no dogs.
Is it? I haven't really.
And no cicadas.
I haven't been down until I'll be downtown next week. I'm just going to drop in with a box of stuff for the pro
for the
prizes.
giveaway. Oh, look, listeners, you get your name in the hat for the pro. Maybe you win some sweet stuff courtesy of the once future and present Dr. VSTOXX as well. He is adding to the vault as we clear it out. Dr. VSTOXX just fills it back up again. And then also joining us this week, holding down the UVX hot seat, fresh from his panel down there at OIC. I heard we were in the same area, the same geographic location, Steve, yet we did not meet up. He is Steve Sosnick, the chief option strategist over there at Interactive Broker. Steve, welcome back to Volatility Views, sir.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark. I did realize that we're in the same place, but did not meet up when my friend Megan, who was on the panel that you're referring to, excused herself from a meeting to do your show. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver here?
That's what I do down there. I have my own conference. I have my own conference and everyone comes to me. That's how it works. You know, I don't go out to where the stage is. That's where the plebs are. I go at my own little section. No, I'm just kidding. I have a fun time.
No, you made me just feel like a pleb. Thank you very much.
We'll get you on one of these days down at the conference. But it was a fun time. I missed your panel, so I had to listen to it via my own network. So there you go. My own network helping me out as well for all the stuff that I miss. You should be checking out the OIC stuff if you haven't done listening. It's coming out now, more to come, and a lot of great stuff. So if you didn't make it down to Asheville or you just didn't want to swing the pretty hefty registration ticket, we got you covered. That's how much we like you. Over there, just on the on-demand side, you can listen to it there for free as we keep on rolling into the Volatility Review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Volatility Review, the portion of the show where we break down the week that was and indeed still is from about trading and trending and analysis and unusual activity. All sorts of fun perspectives. And coming into the end of the week, it's been a interesting week, I think, to put it mildly, but aren't they all these days? Of course, a truncated holiday trading week and a lot of bifurcated trading out there, a lot of weird movements in the market. And we're getting the same today. Coming into the start of the show, it is yet another mixed day. The S&P off about 0.5%. The NASDAQ off over 1%, about 1.4%. The Dow up about 0.4%. And our old friend small caps off almost 0.1% out there as well. Kind of an unch day for them out there. So a very mixed bag out there on the street. Of course, yesterday we had everyone getting spooked by Salesforce earnings. A lot of people were speculating, including us on Option Block, what would happen if the Trump verdict came out? How would that impact things? So far, we're seeing the market kind of digesting that and kind of shrugging off some of it, maybe impacting other areas. A lot going on out there, a lot being added into the mix. Of course, we had PCE coming out today. That seemed like that was decent news for the market. So we were looking a little bit more optimistic early on than we are right now, hanging out a little bit north of the 5,200 level right now in the S&P level, listeners right now. Will we break it? Will we break it out there as the show progresses? Or will we just turn around and rally out there? I guess we have to wait to find out. All this a long way around to saying, listeners, VIX, as we kicked off the show, not surprisingly, a little bit frothier, a little bit juicier, was at about a 1460, actually. That puts it up almost exactly 2.5 points, about 2.45 points from where it was this time last week. So we were all speculating just on the show last week. We didn't see a lot of catalysts out there for driving vol north. Of course, I guess none of us had CRM in our back pocket out there. So apparently we are living in a little bit higher vol environment, at least for right now. Will this persist? Well, that's the game we play on this show, listeners. A VVIX 84 up about 5 points. We always say when we get down into the mid 70s, or dare I say it, even below like we were a few weeks ago, it always pays to sit up and take notice to vol. Looking a lot frothier right now. 84 up about 5 points from where it was this time last week. All right, a lot to unpack, let's go around the horn. Let's start with our guest holding down the UVX hot seat this week. Mr. Steve, if you want to really quickly give a plug for your panel on what the heck you guys were talking about, have at it. And then B, what's catching your eye out there in the vol market this week?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for giving me a chance to plug the OIC. The OIC panel was a lot of fun. It was myself. It was hosted by my friend Stacy Gilbert, who spent a long time at Susquehanna. She now is a portfolio manager at Glenmead. And I was accompanied by Megan Dugan, who runs options at NYSE Arca, and Patrick Zielinski, who runs BOX. The BOX exchange. So it was a good discussion about trends in volatility, trends in options, sort of debunking some of the myths about zero DTE and sort of the pros and cons about the rise of volatility selling, I should say, ETFs and other funds. So I think there was a lot to be gained from that. And, people were nice. At least they told me to my face it went well. So, hopefully it did. But, as I'm looking here about the volatility climate, I think it's encouraging in some ways to see us off the lows. Again, I'm of the belief that be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And I think there was a distinct lack of fear that's been present for so long. And I think, when you see VIX at multi-year lows, that's when you start to get into that. That's the kind of thing that gets my spidey sense tingling a little bit. And so now that we're back at what I would consider more normal levels, whether it's VIX, whether it's V2X, which, the VSTOXX and UVIX, which we'll talk about, I think things are feeling a bit more normal. We're getting a bit more of a balance between fear and greed, whereas we had tipped very heavily toward the greed side.
A little bit more normal. Yeah. Last week we seemed like we were, you're right, plunging a little bit low, maybe a little bit more froth, a little bit more juice getting mixed in there, maybe feels a little bit healthier out there. Let's keep rolling out to the land of the once future and now present Dr. VSTOXX. What's catching your eye out there this week, sir?
I've enjoyed the grind higher this week, which part of it's coming off the 3-day weekend. I haven't paid that much attention to the Trump trial. And I just haven't. There's just no reason to. And there's no reason to have been glued to the TV for an hour and a half to watch him drive home, from what's probably just a regular day at work for that guy yesterday afternoon. But I don't think it has, and I don't think it's having any impact on the election. I don't think it's going to have any, and that's why, that's why we didn't see some sort of weird spike in volatility or anything really happen in the markets, with one exception. DJT did a nice spike down and came right back up as the verdict was being read yesterday. But I'm amazed at the amount of attention the press was giving this thing, and relative to this may be the biggest press event that had no impact on the markets ever.
Certainly did seem to land with a whimper, with a little poof out there and not much else. You're right. Intriguing. It's always hard to digest these intensely political stories. And you're right. A name like DJT, people are buying it off their political views. They're selling it off of their political views. It has completely distorted from any reality at this point. So yes, certainly an intriguing time out there for all this fun as we keep rolling around the horn out to the shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, an intriguing week, a mixed day heading into the start of the show. What is catching your eye out there, sir?
Well, yeah, I guess the market just kind of figured out that already knew the result of the trial. Usually, because if you don't have any, if vol doesn't move, the market doesn't move a whole lot. Like SPY, even after the verdict, I think moved 20 cents. So somewhere everybody's like, yeah, we kind of know what's going to happen, and we're not ready to let this play out. And this is going to play out however it's going to play out. And that's all I could say there. Now, what I did find curious today is, okay, you had the inflation number was, I'd say, okay, right? It didn't come in as hot as some of the other ones that we've had. And yet I find that like VIX is up on the day, or it was up on the day. It's down like 6 cents. But they're not really taking any weekend out for the weekend, which I find kind of odd. Now, I think vol could get zapped here at the end of the day, potentially. We got as low as 1365 on the open, I think, for VIX. So kind of a weird, it's an odd vol day. And, and now the stocks are starting to claw their way back up. And so the second part is, what is going up? Everything that hasn't gone up in the first 5 months of the year. So Walgreens is up 4%. Oil stocks are up. Everything, a lot of stocks that just are more Main Street, and the stuff that's selling off is Microsoft, Google, Nvidia's down. Basically the top 7 mag stocks that's taking the Q down, and the SPY is trying to claw its way back up on the day. So what I would say here is, you have you just had these two numbers. Let's just say the Trump thing had some potential. It could have been maybe a positive catalyst if the charges were dropped or hung jury or something. Then it would be kind of done and we'd be moving on. And maybe you would have seen a drop in VIX from that. But it didn't happen. But right now VIX is down 10 cents with SPX down 0.43%. So something is a little odd there on that. So I find that I feel like I'm getting strange volatility signals as far as VIX, and the front end of the curve, VIX curve, is very, very flat. Like the June contract and VIX cash are the same. And we've got all those short-term vols have popped up a little bit. Like Steve was saying, all of a sudden we've got some real vol again. And that's usually kind of an uneasy short-term signal for volatility. Now, and that could take vol in either direction, usually when the front of the curve is flat like this. So I don't know. All I can say is, as far as going into Friday, there's a lot of very mixed signals. Nothing really looks particularly bearish, particularly bullish. There's a lot of kind of throwing your hands up and where do we go now? Type of activity. So that's what vol to me looks like going to the close.
By the way, how did you settle your VIX wager with the meatballs? 1 point, I believe. But how do you? We moved more than 1 point, but is that because of Trump?
And I got to pay him the dollar when I go to Chicago.
But is that because of Trump? Are you putting that all on Trump? There's other stuff going on too. How did you settle it?
Well, you can't. I thought we would see much more of a move, even a relief sell-off, and I'm totally wrong. Yeah, I was looking for $1 or more, and this morning I was looking okay. Because we were at 13.60, but it's not how it ended up. We just bounced hard. So I didn't get my dollar. I didn't get close. So I got what I got.
That dollar will buy you.
I'm going to have to do the Mortimer and Randolph $1 handoff in front of all my students.
The handoff of shame. That dollar will buy you the giardiniera topping on your Portillo's Italian beef sandwich. So there you go. Yes. Dollar goes a long way in Chi-Town these days. As we keep on rolling, let's go a long way into the volatility surface. Shall we, listeners? What's going on out there this week? Spoiler alert, it is higher than it was a week ago. I know that will come as a surprise. I can hear the gasps in the audience right now. Yes, the front future up. It's funny that, I know we're heading into summer. Still, to me, it seems like it's earlier in the year. It seems crazy that June is the pole position future now. But c'est la vie, up a full point, exactly a point from where it was this time a week ago. July up close to 3/4 of a point. So obviously, that front portion of the term structure getting a little bit frothier, a little bit juicier. It's still pretty manageable. If you go all the way out to October, which is, of course, the time frame everyone has been debating since the start of the year, we're slightly over an 18.07 right now. So we're not even sniffing a 20 handle out there. And if you get out to Jan of next year, so kicking off next year post-election, hopefully, then you're still at about a 17 3/4. So you're not pricing in an apocalyptic amount of juice, at least not yet. Let's go around the horn. We'll start with you, Steve. What's catching your eye out there in the vol surface this week, sir?
As we mentioned, I think the fact that we've sort of seen the front end tick up a little bit, I'm not as mystified by the firmness at the front end, I think, as Andrew is, because basically what I'm looking at here is VIX. Remember, VIX is supposed to be the market's best estimate of the coming vol of the 30 days. Over the next 2 weeks, we've got a jobs number next week. We've got the Fed meeting on the 12th. And I do think actually one thing that's more significant than a lot of people give credit for is the X split date in NVIDIA, which is the 11th. So that's some events that could potentially move volatility around, move the markets around and lead to some firmer volatilities over the period that VIX is intended to be measuring. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think, again, it's just, from a surface point of view, that kink that we're seeing in October makes a lot of sense. I'm with everybody with the idea that the political news is somewhat noise to the markets, but a big election is not. The day-to-day rumblings, markets just don't know how to process them, and so as a result, I think most traders rightfully ignore them. What does it mean to the bottom line of most companies? I can't tell you. That verdict yesterday. Yes, the news should have covered it. It's historic, but realistically, from a market's point of view, it's not a mover. But I do think that you can't ignore the election as we get out to October, and I think that will sort of separate the U.S. from global markets in a certain extent, and to the same extent that you have election, let's say, coming up in the UK on July 4th, which is an interesting day for it, which might separate some European vol from U.S. vol. So there's stuff going on under the hood there a little bit.
A lot of stuff going on under the hood. Really quickly, you and I haven't chatted, Steve, since this latest wave of the NVIDIA madness out there. Are you of the mindset, are you of the belief that it's NVIDIA's market and we are all living in it, that NVIDIA now trumps the Fed and everything else out there, or you think that's overdone? Where do you fall on that, Steve?
I wrote a piece with that title on ibkrcampus.com, months ago. So I very much believe it's NVIDIA's market and we're all trading in it. There's no question. I mean, look at what happened yesterday afternoon. We were muddling along, and then all of a sudden some company-specific bad news came out, and then poof, the whole market went down because NVIDIA went down. We're very much tied to that stock, and that's why I threw the X split date in there as a potential, because there's a potential buy the rumor, sell the news aspect to it. I put that in there as something that could actually have implications for the broader market, as silly as that might sound on the surface.
Mr. Rhoads, same question for you, sir. What's catching your eye out there in the vol surface right now?
The flattening. It looks like the June futures up about $1.20 week over week, and VIX is up over $2.50. So, even though VIX is doing this grind thing higher, and Andrew kind of stole my thunder, because I noticed this morning that VIX was up when the S&P was up earlier. Or basically flat with the S&P 500 up. Of course, that was a great signal that, hey, the S&P ain't going to hold here. But the flattening is something that makes me just wonder if the futures guy, if the move that the futures guys kind of anticipated at a spot, if that's happening right now, and they were just putting a point or so buffer in there, just for a grind higher. But that's the one thing that stands out to me. And we got a nice VSTOXX premium going here, and I know we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to the international segment.
We shall indeed, but first, Mr. Rock Lobster, you stole Russell's thunder. You tried to steal my thunder on Crystal Ball a few weeks ago. That blew up in your face. But what is catching your eye out there in the vol surface this week, sir?
Yeah, I just like that, the short-term flattening. I mean, it's vols are up, and normally when you see like the curve flattening in the short term, remember what's SPX realized right now? What are we running? Oh, the last 10 days, 7.5% realized SPX. 20 days, 9.3%. 30 day, 11%. So it you got kind of low realized moves. And I get VIX is gone. We have a calendar. Just we're not moving a lot for VIX kind of staying where it is. And like, again, when Russell said short term, all the vols, usually when you have that kind of flatness in the front, it leads to a more unstable VIX, either up or down. So that's where I am. We could be back below 13 or above 15, I think, relatively fast next week, just because we need the SPX to move now to support these vols. And if it don't, I don't see liquidity providers holding the bid up just to be nice and let everybody sell them options. So I think it's kind of like something's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, so to speak.
Why wouldn't they keep the bid up, just let people sell it to you? You don't think they're altruistic people? How dare you cast such aspersions at the market makers out there? As we keep on rolling, let's see what they are trading out there, shall we, listeners? Is it a banger day out there in the old VIX markets? The answer is it wasn't. It was kind of sleepy until a few minutes ago, and then a whole bunch of vol just popped on my screen, and volume really, and now we're at over 500,000 contracts, 511,000. So it went kind of in a few seconds from a pretty sleepy day to actually something maybe intriguing. Again, this is why it's such a pain to prepare for this show. You can't really do it days, weeks, even hours ahead of time. It's a minute-by-minute process. So we'll get to all that fun in a little bit. Over 500,000 contracts already on the tape. The ADV 820 right now, pretty much unchanged on the week. Let's break it down now in terms of top positions out there. What's open for size and VIX options right now? Still 9-1 calls over puts, but all you put lovers out there will be happy to know puts climbing the ranks a little bit this week. Spoiler alert, may have to wait a little bit to get to your Where's Waldo put strike out here. But number 10 cost you 180,000 contracts to break into the VIX top 10 this week. That gets you to our old friend, the June 14s, the, dare I say it, most reasonable trade on this board. Maybe not. Maybe there's another one you like better in a second. Number 9, 183,000 of the June 45. See what I mean, listeners? Right back to the nonsense. Number 8, 200,000 exactly of the July 18s. Number 7, 214,000 of the June 18s. So pick your poison on the 18 strike. Number 6, 222,000 of my old friend, the AUG 47 halves. If the June and July 47 halves weren't doing it for you, allow me to present the AUG 47 halves for 222,000 contracts. Number 5, 227,000 of the June 35. So not quite as, shall we say, optimistic as the 47 halves. Number 4, here's our friend, 234,000 of the June 14 puts. So which side of that trade you like better, listeners? June 14 call or the June 14 put? Might be a fun poll question. Number 3, 263,000 of the June 20s. Number 2, 266,000 of the June 16s. Then we jump up another 200,000 contracts to the number 1 spot out there, 467,000. So 201,000 contracts more than number 2. That gets us to the July 20s. A lot popping off out there. But before we get to all that fun, we have to go into Russell's weekly rundown.
Now, Russell's weekly rundown. Now, Russell's weekly rundown.
The tune's so nice, we are legally obligated, it's in our contract, listeners, to play it twice. Mr. Dr. VSTOXX, sir, what's catching your eye out there? And a little bit of VIX weekly options this week.
Sure. So not a, it's a holiday shortened week. We continue to see bullish June 5th trades. And which may coincide with VIX creeping up a bit. Maybe somebody's expecting something this coming weekend. Who knows? First, a great trade. There's just no other way to put it. I wouldn't have done this trade, but a great trade. Late Tuesday, somebody bought 400 of the May 29th 11.5 calls at an average price of $1.46. They settled at 271 the next morning. So if I had done that trade, I would do what I did the one time that I won a few $100 in the lottery when my wife made me buy a lottery ticket. I was like, I bought one, I won, I'm done. If I did a trade just based on where I thought the VIX settlement was going to be, and I made money off of it, I would consider myself very fortunate and move on in life. But good trade. Maybe they expected some an overnight bump in volatility, and that's the way they went about playing it. If they'd been wrong, they may have just kind of broken even on the trade as well. So when they did this trade, VIX was anywhere between 1270 and about 1305. Which puts the value at like between $1.20 and $1.55. I think they got some good executions on this as well. And then two of the exact same trade on Wednesday and then today, with VIX between 1401 and 1421. Somebody bought, and this was on Wednesday. Somebody bought 15,000 of the June 5th 16 calls for 28 cents, sold the same number of 21 calls for 6 cents. That cost them 22 cents, and they've got some nice, a nice cheap trade if we get a vol spike between this moment and next Wednesday. And
I don't hate that one.
No, and they liked it so much, they came back this morning and did the same trade for a little bit less price. I don't know if it's the same person, but with VIX at 1432, somebody came in and bought 5,000 of the June 5th 16 calls for 22 cents, sold the June 5th 21 calls for 4 cents, cost them 18 cents. And once again, if World War III escalates, I'm not going to say breaks out, if it escalates over the weekend, that might be a really good trade.
Yeah, some interesting stuff to unpack there, listeners. Any nuggets resonate to you out there in the listening audience, make you scratch your chin? What's going on with all this June 5th paper? Huh? Kind of interesting. Some folks definitely on the docket for something maybe popping off over the next week. But let's get to this week's paper, including today. Like I said, something popping off right now as we're speaking, as of a few minutes ago out there in VIX land, because the volume all of a sudden going from a pretty sleepy day to north of 500,000 contracts. The lion's share of that, about 200,000 contracts, listeners, going up in this, I guess you can call it funky iron condor swap. I would call it what you will. It's a whole bunch of strikes, all of them for 24,260 contracts each, or as Andrew puts it, a bunch of stuff. Yes, they did a bunch of stuff. Let's try to put it in some semblance of the order, shall we, listeners? They did the 24,260, again, each of the 14.5 calls for $1. And then they did the 17 calls for 49 cents. Then they did the 15.5 calls for 72 cents and the 20 calls for 22 cents. Then they're not done. They went to the put side. They went to 14 puts for 64 cents, 13.5 puts for 40 cents, 13 puts for 22 cents, and then the 12 puts for 10 cents. Add all that up together, it's about 200,000 contracts, listeners. All went up at the same time in one print. No idea what the heck they were up to. I have to go really parse it. It all went up mid-market as usual. So as Andrew puts it, a bunch of stuff, but a lot of stuff going on. And certainly an intriguing construction. I can't remember the last time I saw something that is effectively like an iron condor, but on both sides of the docket, calls and puts. You don't really see that too often. So kind of funky paper out there. It'll take a while to parse that as we keep on rolling. Yesterday, not that active, 571,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog, 46,000 of the June 14 calls, followed by 39,000 of the June 14 puts, 33,000 of the June 13 puts, 32,000 of the 12.5 puts, and throwing a little July in there, we got 31,000 of the July 18 calls. Wednesday, 675,000. That was the number for Wednesday. 64,000 was the big dog. It was the June 20s, followed by 51,000 of the June 13 puts. 51,000 as well of the 35 calls in June. So maybe we have a funky risk reversal going up out there in June, listeners. 1335. You like those strikes? Interesting choices if that's the case. 40,000 for number 4, of the July 26s. And rounding out the top 5 on a pretty light Wednesday, 38,000 of the June 26s. Tuesday, 649,000. So really no banger days, unless today really takes off. No banger days this week. The big dog on Tuesday, though, 78,000 of the June 20s, followed by number 2, 51,000 of the SEP 20s. Number 3, 51,000 as well of the SEP 30s. So maybe you got some vertical action. Number 4, 51,000 as well of the June 30s. So maybe some funky action out there, all lining up volume-wise. And number 5, 25,000 of the SEP 13 puts. Steve, will go out to you first as the chief option strategist out there at IB. I know you're paying a lot of attention to all things VIX. anything catching your eye in the realm of VIX options this week? And then B, what were you up to with this 200,000 lot you put up today while we were doing the show, sir?
That wasn't me. Well, at least I wasn't involved with the 200,000. But basically, you know what? I think what we're talking about here is there's like my view of VIX is, and I know there's the dictionary definition, but when, you know, of the 30-day look ahead, et cetera, market's best estimate. There's also the talk, you know, that is VIX the fear gauge, which I also am dismissive of. It's not a fear gauge. It just plays one on TV. But my view of VIX that I find most constructive when I think about it this way is it's really the best barometer of demand for institutional hedges, because in my mind, it is still the most effective way for a large institution to gain a hedge, not necessarily a long-lasting hedge, but certainly a hedge against a spike or a black swan or something of that nature. And as I said, people were not focusing on that for some time. And in the last couple of, maybe in the last week or so, I think since last Thursday's key reversal, I think people have started to get a little bit more of an appreciation for risk, or maybe the idea that we need to hedge. And a lot of the trades you're talking about involve insurance plays by, which are large insurance, large portfolio managers hedging their, buying black swan insurance. And that's, not necessarily the worst thing to see. Again, I like to see that balance between fear and greed. And so maybe a little bit of respect for the fear side is not so terrible for us.
Speaking of insurance, I was just looking while you were talking to see if that was indeed a risk reversal or some sort of funky collar on Wednesday with the 35 calls. But it seems like the 35 calls just went up straight up 44,442 times for 8 cents. So getting back to some of your hedging activity you're just talking about, listeners. You like those, listeners? June 35s for 8 cents. Somebody likes them to the tune of 44,000 on Wednesday. So intriguing stuff. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, anything catching your eye out there this week in the VIX mothership options, sir?
Yeah, there was a lot of put buyers, I thought. Real simply, they're buying the puts. So we got that little rally into 14-ish from the spanking they gave Vol last week. But as of right now, they're not really paying. So yeah, I saw mostly puts trading in VIX, but I didn't see anything really in calls. Another thing for people to think about is, VIX is also pricing just 30 days. So another way to use is, if you think that straddle is going to expand, 30-day straddle. I was talking to my students. It was like 30-day straddle was $110 or something on the close Friday, I think, 110, 115, boom to 145. So another way to think about VIX is, I know it's not exact, but it's a good proxy if you think the straddle is going to expand, and in this market, when it gets down to about 110 or 115, that's pretty cheap for 30 days at this rate. Be mind, it's only 2%. So, and I think SPX has moved 2% every month, peak to trough at least every month, except 4 or 5 times over the last 9 years. So it's almost a lock to buy a 2% straddle in SPX with 30 days to go. So that would be a little tip for all of you to trying to decide how low vol can go until we have some prolonged lower realized vol. That's a pretty good marker, 2% for 30 days in SPX. But I will leave it there for people to cogitate over.
We will leave it there indeed as we keep on rolling beyond our shores, listeners. It is time for the International Volatility Review.
It's time to explore what's happening in the volatility market beyond our shores. It's time for the International Volatility Review. The International Volatility segment is brought to you by Eurex, home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and the German government bond-based Eurobund, Eurobobble, Euroshots derivatives. Eurex is the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading VSTOXX futures and options, the European volatility benchmark, at www.eurex.com/VSTOXX.
All right, everybody, welcome to the International Volatility Review, where we go a little bit farther afield, see what's popping off across the pond, shall we? Especially in the land of VSTOXX, which coming into the start of the show a wee bit higher than it was this time a week ago. I know, shocking, appalling to many of you out there who are still trying to come to grips with this whole VIX versus VSTOXX thing. How do they line up? How do they move together or perhaps apart? A lot to unpack there. 14.14 is where it closed coming into the show. We were at a 12.61 last week. It puts it up about 1.53 points to be precise on the week. So a fair bit of juice coming in there. And again, for all of you trying to dial that in versus VIX, a decent move out there on the week, about 1.53 points. Remember the range we've been dealing with, about 23 1/3 on the upside. That was back around Halloween of last year. The low came in December of last year of 12.12, even though we did kiss it a few weeks ago in the low there. I'll have to go look and see exactly how low we got, but I'm pretty sure we kissed 12.12, got to 12.13 maybe. So a lot going on, but let's start with you, Steve, because since we've been talking about VSTOXX, we've had a lot of questions, not just from the listening audience, but from people on the show, guests on the show, both during, before, and after the show, about how do they get access to this VSTOXX thing? Where does it trade? What are the hours? What can they trade? All good questions, but we've decided, you know what? It's time to answer them. And who better than the guy who works at the firm who handles a lot of that flow, aka IB. So Steve, take it away, sir, as our resident VSTOXX, let's say, order flow guy. We'll call you that.
I'm happy to have that name, that moniker. Yeah, you know, one of the things we've always prided ourselves on at Interactive Brokers is offering access to as many products and as, you know, around the world to global investors as we can. And, you know, we're very proud to have partnered with Eurex in terms of offering access to the VSTOXX, you know, to VSTOXX derivatives for a period of time. You know, as we know, they're based on the EuroStoxx 50, which is really the European benchmark. I kind of like that index because it's sort of not quite as narrow as the Dow, a little bit less narrow, but it's actually not not an average. It's actually a real index, and it's got some big names. It is heavily weighted to ASML, being its largest weight. So, like SPX, it's got a tech weighting. It's got also weightings to luxury goods that we don't. And what I think is really cool about the VSTOXX is it's VIX-like, but without actually being VIX. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure Russell has the numbers to back it up certainly as well. You know, they if you look at a chart, they move generally together, but they're not correlated one for one, which is to me a great thing because it means you can have meaningful yet risk-controlled trades if you want to play Europe versus the U.S. And of course, it gives you a way to hedge Europe, which is very important. The hours are long. They basically start trading, in Asian hours through late European hours. So you can access it, for insomniacs in North America. You can access it at all different hours. But certainly during normal trading hours, it's accessible. It's something we pride ourselves in, and something we're excited to be able to say that we can offer to clients and allow them to basically have the trading strategies that they want to use. If you have an IBKR platform in front of you, it's V2TX is the symbol on our platform. I think it's a little bit different than you might see it elsewhere, but that's how you would access it if you are a customer. If you're not, shame on you, and please become one.
So, Mr. Rock Lobster, I believe even you had questions along those lines of where can you trade a VSTOXX, as you put it. So there you go, Mr. Rock Lobster. Does that at least answer one of your questions, sir?
I believe my questions have been answered. I do appreciate that. Well, it's nice to just go to the top. You know, you're bringing the guy from the top to the show. So it's good that you're bringing higher quality guests than just me and Russell these days.
I will say Thomas Petterfy may take exception to that. Okay.
Gotta get Thomas back on the show. I haven't chatted with him in a little bit. Mr. Rhoads, sir, same question for you. A lot going on out there in the world of VSTOXX since last we chatted, sir. What's been catching your eye out there?
Well, first off, and I'm just totally sucking up to Petterfy and Steve right now. I did not have European trading permissions and went to do a VSTOXX futures trade. It took me about 5 minutes to flip that on. So it didn't even impact my trade. That I had forgotten that I didn't have that permission anymore. So it's very simple if you're trading U.S. markets with them to get that switch flipped or flip that switch for you. Things have flipped. I'm actually long VSTOXX and short VIX. They flip-flopped on me a bit this week.
Just in time to get your other trade on, you got to flip it now.
Yeah. And the VSTOXX curve is flat. So, we've got a little bit of a premium here in the U.S., but right now the VSTOXX future, last I checked, was like at a nickel the June contract was at a nickel discount to the spot. And sometimes that'll happen on Fridays based on what's happening in the U.S. markets, because the futures are still open even though the index has been settled. If you see when I see something like that, where the future is going down, I would assume that the S&P 500 would be up an awful lot. And the VSTOXX guys are expecting some sort of follow through early next week based on what's happening in the U.S. And that's not exactly what's happening in the U.S. We're clawing our way back, but we're off our lows, but we're still down on the day. So, whatever that mysterious thing is that's lurking around that Andrew and I are scratching our heads over and going, the markets, we're just can't put our thumb on it. And I don't know if you guys, I don't know if Andrew's ever had this experience. I did, because I worked at a very large company. There will always be rumors, or that management would take a big action, and then 6 months later you go, oh, that's why they did that. That happens in VIX every once in a while, where VIX is not doing and I'm doing air quotes here, what it's supposed to do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what the smart people were thinking, and that's why VIX was behaving the way that it was, which gives me a little concern for next week.
Speaking of debating things, our chat is continuing to debate the paper you put out there, Russell, about June 5th, and what could be the catalyst for all that VIX paper. Speaking of our listener question, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to bump up a listener question right now because it is very germane to what we're talking about out here. Let's go to this question here from Daniel Bonsoms. He was listening to the show last week, and he has a question for you, Mr. Rhoads. He says, where are you pulling all this VSTOXX historical data? There's a lot of historical data on LiveVol for VIX. You get the spot, the future, and the options going back 10 plus years. Is there a place where you pay to get VSTOXX data, and can he download it to Excel? So this goes along the way to a lot of the questions we're getting about the mechanics of VSTOXX. Mr. Rhoads, you're out there crunching the data. What do you have to say here for Daniel and the others who have similar questions?
Okay, well, I get the I've got a Bloomberg, and which is kind of prohibitive for a lot of people, but I like to cross-reference data, and I need the Bloomberg for the VSTOXX options. There's just I haven't found another cheaper way to go about getting at the data, and that's actually why I have Bloomberg. Barchart.com, you can get European futures. And like I did a study, the model that I put together that I keep tweaking and not writing up, and I'm trading already, where I trade the VSTOXX futures versus the VIX futures. I went through the data and I pulled out the closing price for each of them for the front month future at 10 a.m. The data work took pretty much a full weekend, but now I have a cool database to test things with. But I chose 10 a.m. Just kind of as a closing time. There's still a little time left in Europe. The U.S. has settled down a bit, and I just look at the front month future in one versus the other, and that's actually how I judge the spread as well. But barchart.com, it's $30 a month, and I download the data straight into Excel. They let you do 150 downloads a day.
There you go, listeners.
And I've never talked to anybody there before, so that's not like it's not like I'm getting a kickback.
Just a good place to get some data in your hot little hands, listeners. As we keep on rolling, man, we're chatting a lot of vol today, already coming up against it. Let's go out here to some of the other vol ETPs, and of course, we'll get our crystal balls in for this week. SVIX was looking a little bit darker, so it can go down, listeners. Was at about a 43.5 when we kicked off the show. It puts it down about 3.5 points. It has ticked back up a little bit, up to about a 44.30 right now. It puts it down about 2.7 or so points on the week, but still giving up a little bit of the ghost out there this week, as you would expect with vol turning around a little bit out there. Today we got about 3,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV is about 4,000. That's unched. Seems like we might be able to hit it out there. And the top position right now in SVIX, about 2,100 of the July 46 puts. So again, we continue to see in the money puts trading for size in SVIX. Looks like that was against the 42 put, so maybe we have a 46-42 put spread. I don't know. You like that, listeners? An in-the-money put spread in SVIX? I'll leave it up to you. UVIX was at a 710 when we kicked off the show. Puts it up a full point. Giving up some of that right now at about a 670. So that puts it up about 0.6 of a point right now. In terms of paper, we got about 17,000 contracts on the tape today. So not a banger day. The ADV is 20,000. That's down about 2,000 on the week. Seems like we are probably going to hit that out there. In terms of size positions, we've got about 5,000. Again, this is the pre-split adjusted one put, so less said about those, the better out there. As we keep on rolling out to UVXY, was at a 28 when we kicked off the show. Now that's up 3.2 points. Now it's at about a 27. Puts it up about 2.2 points, obviously, on the week. In terms of paper, actually a pretty decent day out there, 51,000 contracts. That's better than the ADV, which is 45,000 right now, which is unchanged from last week. And we also have pre-split adjusted nonsense positions out here in UVXY. So instead, we'll keep rolling, pun intended, out to VXX. Was at a 1220 when we kicked off the show. That puts it exactly up a point from where it was this time last week. Right now, it's at about an 1190, so coming off a little bit, up about 0.7 on the week right now. In terms of paper, we have about 63,000 contracts on the tape, so starting to turn it around out here. The ADV is 59,000. That's down 3,000 from last week, but I got a feeling if today's paper continues, might be turning back around again. And in terms of size positions, we have 15,000 of the June 13 puts. Steve, I just ran through the full gamut of volatility ETPs out there. Anything catching your eye in that neck of the woods, sir?
You know, this is one where I think I'm at odds with a lot of your listenership, and that is that I really don't pay a ton of attention to the vol ETPs. I just never have. As someone who spent his career as a market maker, I hate, basically getting involved in products that force me to pay someone else to then pay the market maker. So I think in general, I think it's great that this ecosystem exists, that we have a lot of people active in it. But personally, I never really get too involved in any of them. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a pass on that one.
Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, I know you love yourself some vol ETPs. Cannot get enough, especially just getting long tons of VXX and riding it to the upside. Your favorite trade, sir. What's catching your eye out there, sir?
Well, what caught my eye was last week we had a all-time low for them on Friday when we're doing the show, actually. And today we got kind of a little pop, probably I'm going to say 10% off the bottom, like for UVXY. So they're getting frothy again. And we also have a UVIX split, I believe, probably should be coming up pretty soon. So, usually right before a split, you get one extra little, right? You get some kind of extra little pop somewhere just to get everybody all hot and bothered. But as far as, those products go, I mean, we just split UVXY and it promptly went from 40 to 20, 25 or 20. What was the low? 24.67, something like that. So they still do what they're supposed to do, which is behave crappily. So the second part is looking for the inverse trade. We haven't had enough of a vol pop yet for me to get interested in the inverse products, but I watch and I wait for those.
A watcher and a waiter indeed. And Mr. Rhoads, sir, I know you love yourselves a little bit of SVIX retreating a little bit out there, so maybe luring you back to the dark side. Or did our conversation from last week about maybe the reluctance to sell puts, did that put you off it entirely, sir?
No, it didn't put me off entirely. Actually, I sold some 42 puts. I sold some of the June 14th 42 puts, which would be about a 10% retrace, which is a number I always talk about. I've got the smallest position that I normally have in SVIX. I'm just hoping for the vol spike so I can work back into a full position. And we talk about how much I love SVIX. I do combine that with a short position in the S&P 500 futures. As I'm getting hit on the S&P 500, I'm getting hedged a little bit a very little bit these days with my SVIX position. So I do kind of trade those against each other.
There you go. A little bit of a hedge, listeners. Let's see if he can hedge his vol prognostications, listeners. Yes, it's that time. It is time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, listeners, let's do it. Let's see where we landed here this week. Of course, we just did VSTOXX. That was at a 14.14 coming in to the start of the show here. And, of course, we mentioned VIX was looking a little bit frothy earlier in the show. Coming in to start the show now, we have given up some of that upside, as you could probably guess from the vol ETPs. We were at a 14.60, threatening a 14 3/4 when we kicked off the show. Back down now to about a 14.37 or so out there in VIX cash land. Actually giving up more now, 14.27 out there in VIX cash. So a lot to unpack around there. Let's go around the horn and see how we lined up last week. Last week on the show was, of course, myself and Zed Francis was our guest in the UVX hot seat. We had he was at a 13.06. He just went just VIX. And then myself, I was at 11.65, so I was feeling a little bit less vol in VIX. No joy there. VSTOXX 12.15, no joy there as well. It was the meatball. He was at a 12.21 in VIX, so no joy for him. And VSTOXX 13.31, a little bit closer, but no joy. And then Mr. Rhoads 11.80 and a VSTOXX at 12.40. So a long way around to saying no joy for any of us. Our guest had the most vol, VIX at 13 handle. And he was obviously a little bit off. So a long way around to saying, Steve, as our guest this week, you get the dubious honor of going first, sir. What are you feeling for VIX and also for VSTOXX this time next week, sir? A twofer.
Essentially, what you're asking me to do is basically place a bet on Friday's jobs numbers, which is going to be, so it's do I feel lucky or not? I'm going to say that I think the market's feeling a little heavy, getting a little bit risk averse. So I'm going to put VSTOXX at 15.01 and VIX at 15.21.
A little bit juicy, a little bit frothy after the jobs number next week. Yes, you're right. You're grokking to the challenge of this segment, Steve, which is, will the vol, whatever happens in the morning, will it persist by showtime, or will it be gone by the time we do the show? That's always the challenge we grapple with here on the show, which makes it so much fun. As we go around the horn, we'll go to the once and future Dr. VSTOXX, sir. What are you feeling this week, or I should say this time next week, for VIX and VSTOXX, sir?
Okay, I'm sorry. What did Steve? I apologize. I didn't write down Steve's guess, and I have to triangulate all my thoughts.
15.21 in VIX, a premium, because VSTOXX at 15.01.
Let's subtract $1 from both of those and flip them. So 14.01 for VIX and 14.21 for VSTOXX.
I knew you were asking for a reason. Look at you. Look at you. All this data
No,
crunching.
I like the spread between the two, but I like it flipped. So there.
All this data crunching you do, at the end of the day, you're just purloining Steve's guesses and knocking a buck off. All right, I see.
Why I like to go last.
I see your data analysis out there. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. I'm letting you go first because this way you can't scum me. What are you feeling this time next week, sir?
I know I'm happy. I just added VV2TX. I have to go with Steve on this one. This market does feel just a little woolly. I'm gonna go. I think we have more volatility during the week, and then the jobs number maybe gives us a little relief. So, but I don't think we're going to be a whole lot. I'll say VIX 1550 and 1540 VSTOXX. How's that?
Two of you now going a discount to VSTOXX. Interesting out there. I shall go last, listeners. I'm feeling a little more juice than I was feeling this time last week, obviously. But I think a little bit less juice, a little bit of a haircut off the top of where we are right now. Obviously, it all get mixed into the heady stew that is the jobs number on Monday, or I should say on Friday. We'll see what remains by the time of the show. All that a long way around to saying 1337 for me on VIX, listeners, and a VSTOXX at a hefty half-point premium at a 1387. All right. A lot of vol living being done on the show this week. Hope you had a good time. Hope you're having a good trading week, listeners. That will conclude your broadcast week for all of you on demand, folks. All you pro folks, hang out. We'll be back in a little bit to break down the week that was with a whole bunch of options oddities. Of course, you get your name in the hat for the May Pro Trading Crate. Get in there pretty soon, listeners. Want to get your name in the hat for the May Crate, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That also opens the door for you for options oddities and a whole bunch of other fun. But before we go, Steve, you did a great job in the UVIX hot seat this week. If folks are intrigued by what you're putting down, they want to check out everything IB has to offer on the VSTOXX side, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Simplest thing is just basically, start with the V2TX ticker, which I'm glad I converted someone to that on their trader workstation. We have a tremendous amount of resources devoted to education. They're under the banner ibkrcampus.com. You could find my stuff there, which I publish. I try to publish daily, so it's like ibkrcampus.com/author/Steve-Sosnick, but you can look for that. But also, one of the things that I really want to highlight is we have a tremendous amount of financial education, and anything that we've done with UVX or any of the other exchanges can be found under the various webinars and courses and stuff that we do. So I really encourage people to seek this stuff out. You do not have to be a customer to use it. The hope, of course, is that you do use it and say, "Oh, we'd love to trade with these people." But this is a free resource for any listener to access. So please, ibkrcampus.com.
I like to see education not behind a paywall. Well done, sir. ibkrcampus.com, the place to go to learn more. And Mr. Rhoads, if folks are intrigued, they want to learn more about what you're cooking up over there, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, I'm going to endorse somebody else. So Matthew Corin over at UVIX, he does a weekly recap of everything VSTOXX, and he puts it out on LinkedIn. I sent you the link in our little internal chat if you want to share it with the listeners. I don't really think Matthew would be thrilled with me putting it out on Twitter. But he does a weekly I do a weekly recap on my own Substack. But he really gets in the weeds with respect to VSTOXX. So if you're interested in that market, he is definitely somebody you want to follow.
Yeah, I will check that out. Matthew Corin over there. We'll see if we can get some of
that. And he went to Cornell.
Uh-oh. Can't trust a Cornellian. I'm already deleting
you'd like that.
I'm already deleting it as we speak out there. Cornellians, definitely not trustworthy, at least not on this network. And last but not least, we go out to the hinterlands of Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, where should folks go if they want more vol goodness in their lives?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. We just launched our Option Pit University, which basically you buy our suite of videos on basically how to do stuff. how to do stuff, manage trades, how Greeks works, Vol works, like crazy amount of stuff that's in there. Plus, we will be updating the video library weekly. So you're going to pay one price and you're going to get basically an endless stream of content till your head caves in. So if you want to learn more, we go places where, others can't travel as far as how to manage positions. If you have questions about it, like how do I fix my broken this or that, stuff like that, all kinds of stuff like that is in the new Option Pit University. So we still have our live stuff, but if you just want to check out videos and see how stuff works, Option Pit University is a good place to go.
There you go. Check it out, listeners. That is going to do it for us on the old Volatility Views this week. That also will conclude your broadcast week for all of our on-demand folks. Back again in a little bit on the pro side for a whole bunch of options oddities. Back again on Monday for another episode of the Option Block. No holiday this week, all the way through to next Friday, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The International Volatility segment is brought to you by Eurex, home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and the German government bond-based Eurobund, Eurobobble, Euroshots derivatives. Eurex is the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading VSTOXX futures and options, the European Volatility Benchmark, at www.eurex.com/VSTOXX. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.